Hello, my darling sweet friends, and welcome to this beautiful live workshop on how to transform or alchemize your self-conflict into self-peace. I am so freaking delighted that we are doing this here today together, because I'll be so honest with you, when I realized, when I was first taught the method that inspired the Peace Talks method, it was called parts integration at the time that I learned it. When I learned that process, and then it sparked me to start using parts integration for self-love and self-peace, I was so mind blown that I had never been taught something like this before. And essentially what the Peace Talks method that we are going to walk through today does for you is to help you understand both sides of your conflict. And it sounds really super simple, and actually the process is very simple, but understanding the side of our conflict where we have feelings of saltiness, or feelings of I shouldn't feel that way, when we make ourselves wrong for feeling a sense of stuckness or a sense of fear, those common causes of self-conflict, we are often tempted, or have been taught in the past, to treat these things like they're negative, to treat these emotions or these thoughts in our head like they are mean girl thoughts, or that they are inherently bad or negative and we shouldn't have them and we should squash them. I mean, even when you think about fear, for example, as an emotion, we are often taught to be in conflict with fear. We are often taught that we should hide from our fears, or that we should face our fears if we're feeling brave, or that we should conquer them. I even saw a post from someone I'm friends with on Facebook saying that she wanted to kill her fears. And what happens when we back ourselves into this corner of being in conflict with ourselves, we make part of ourselves wrong for even existing. We make part of ourselves inappropriate or unwelcome. And what that does is it fosters self-hate. When we make parts of ourselves feel unwelcome, invalid, wrong, we are making essentially ourselves feel invalid, to feel wrong. And that is so not necessary. So that is why it is one of the sweetest passions of my life to talk about this Peace Talks method, because what it does is it gets to revolutionize the way in which you are in relationship with yourself. It gets to not only transform conflict this one time as we go through it, but it also gets to be a practice that you can use over and over again. And as you deepen your use of the Peace Talks method, you deepen and sweeten your relationship with your own sweet, darn beautiful self. And that is so beautiful. That is what life is about, is to have a beautiful, thriving, and delicious self-relationship, so that you can go and light others on fire with your inner magic, with your sweet light, so that you can positively impact the world around you. And when you don't take the time to lay that foundation with yourself first, you are less able to shine effectively, or you can only shine part of the time because you're so burnt out or so stuck in a quagmire of your own self-conflict. And that can be a really hard space to get out of when you don't have tools or techniques like the Peace Talks method, when you are not Facebook friends with a self-love coach. So I am delighted to be bringing this to you so that you can have this tool in your toolkit to be able to engage with yourself in a way that is so beautiful and so delicious. Because when you're in a sense of self-conflict, it's just detrimental in general to living an efficient life, if you care about efficiency, a productive life, if you care about productivity. It is at odds with a peaceful life if you are looking for peace in your life, which peace and freedom are my two big values right now. And one of the times I can really remember sitting in a sense of conflict was back when I was teaching. And I had this super smart kid in class. And I, as a teacher, knew that he was smart. And so I cut him some slack in my classroom management. And he, being a teenager who pushes boundaries, I don't even want to say took advantage of what the latitude that I allowed for him. He utilized the opportunity that I gave him and didn't necessarily use it for like the betterment of his studies. And essentially what I did was create a behavior situation in my own classroom that was totally unnecessary for me to have to deal with monitoring him then extra, because I had let him have latitude or more freedom at the beginning. And we could have a whole rant or sidebar about the structure of the American education system and how it's not conducive to students learning in the way that it is. However, we're going to keep things a little bit succinct here because that's not the focus of today. My purpose in telling you this story is that I sat in conflict over what to do about it. I didn't act, or I overreacted, or I underreacted, and I made all of these decisions so hard on myself when, had I known the Peace Talks method, I didn't have to. If only I could have sat my past self down and gone through this method, I would have been able to take action with a whole lot more peace in my heart, with a whole lot more resolution about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be in that situation. And what would have happened would not have only benefited me, but it would have benefited that kid who really just needed an extra challenge. And at the time I was so burnt out that all I could do was sit in conflict with myself over it. And that did him no favors in reaching his full potential either. So when I say truly that helping yourself achieve a foundation of self-peace and a foundation of self-love has a trickle-out effect onto the people around you, I mean it. I know it because I've lived the opposite of it. And also now I have lived the beauty of that because of my sweet self-peace. I have so much more capacity to be able to hold peace for my clients, for my students, for my family, for my best friends, right? And that makes me feel so excited, so happy to know that my devotion, my dedication to my own self-peace has had this gorgeous effect on so many other people. So when you can zero in on, and when you can take a moment for your own sense of self-peace and self-worth and self-love by using this peace talks method, you are going to watch yourself have so much more energy left over for your dreams, for the people you love, for the ways that you can make an impact in this beautiful world. And that makes me so freaking excited for you. That makes me so hyped. So let's start talking about how we can use this peace talks method, or what it is based in, so that when we get into it, we understand the foundation of it. The peace talks method is essentially based beautifully on conflict negotiation, on like high stakes negotiating in corporate America, or perhaps even in politics. And it's essentially the basis of understanding the like most beautiful or highest desire or intention of the other party. So if you are yourself a person who has big dreams and big goals, and you're feeling stuck in conflict, perhaps stuck in fear of going after those dreams, that other that you want to try and understand is your fear. Because it's so easy to say like, oh my god, fuck my fear. Like, my fear fucking sucks. And one of my personal mantras back in the day, back when I was a teacher, was fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. And essentially what that does was setting me up to say to myself every time, fuck part of you, self, I'm gonna do it anyway. And so it was really like you're punching your own self in the face and giving yourself a hug at the same time, right? You are being unkind to yourself and also doing what you wanted to do, and that creates friction for yourself. So in high stakes, like corporate negotiating, if you can know what the biggest intention or why for the company that, let's say we have two companies who are trying to merge. Company A really wants to have a partnership with company B. If company A can figure out what company B really truly values and wants above all else, then company A can present company B with a package that is exactly that thing. All of the bells and whistles align to, let's say they want really like consent-based clarity with their customers. They really want transparency. Company A can be like, well, if we give you full transparency, a way to be fully transparent with your clients, would that make you want to work with us? Company B would be like, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted this whole time. Of course, let's do this. And when you can have that understanding, then you can have agreement. And so what we're trying to figure out today through this peace talks method is a deeper understanding of what your fear wants for you, and or whatever your conflict is. This method works for essentially anything that you feel in conflict with. It could be a thought that rolls around your head over and over again, like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be enough, or they'll never listen to me. Okay, anything that kind of like keeps you small and keeps you sitting in conflict like that. It could be with an emotion like fear, or you could use it for grief. I just did an exercise with my therapist today. I kind of let it because I know the peace talks method and my therapist does not, but that's okay. Of like grieving. And so essentially anything that keeps you in self-conflict is something that you can use this on. So for the purposes of this example, say that we're talking to our fear and we just really essentially want to know what our fear wants for us. What is their highest goal for us? Because when we know that, we can achieve peace. We can give our fear what it wants in order to feel validated and at peace. And that is super beautiful. So that's where we are headed with this method. What I want to point out first, before we get into the practice of it, is a real quick anecdote, a story that I read, I think, on Upworthy, if anyone else follows Upworthy. If you're a millennial like me and you follow Upworthy for positive stories, it was this story about a mom who discovered that like pudding packs were missing from her fridge. And she was like, oh my God, my kid stole pudding packs. I'm the worst parent ever. How did I raise a kid who steals? Like, that's super messed up. So she goes to her kid and she's like, we'll say his name is Josh. Like, Josh, you stole pudding from the refrigerator. Like, why did you do that? And Josh says, well, because I needed it. And this mom totally could have left it at that and been like, you did not need pudding. Like, go to your room without dessert. Or however, parents, I don't know, give consequences. Not a parent yet. So she could have very easily brushed the kid off. Instead, she was like, for what reason did you think that you needed pudding? And sweet, cute Josh in this Upworthy story says something along the lines of, well, Lionel needed it. And the mom is just like, Lionel? Like, he's talked about a Lionel at school. Why did Lionel need pudding, Josh? And Josh says, well, because he never brings lunch, so he doesn't get to eat. And this mom is like, oh my gosh, like, that is so sad. And look at this son that I've raised who has so much compassion and love for his classmate Lionel that he just wanted him to make sure that, like, he got a pudding pack. And a situation that could have very easily been left in a state of conflict, because we dug a little deeper and found out Josh's higher intention, she was able to say to him, like, oh my gosh, that is so kind of you. Why don't we make lunch for Lionel together every day? And not only was she able to more deeply understand her son, but then she was able to engage with him in a really beautiful way, and then also impact another kid. I think that's beautiful. And essentially what we're doing is we are looking at that part of ourselves that we're in conflict with, and we're asking it, for what reason do you need that pudding cup? Okay? For what reason, fear, are you here for me? And that is where we start the Peace Talks method. And it's essentially this question of, for what reason? And we're going to ask it again and again and again until we get to this beautiful, like, higher intention, where Josh's higher intention was helping his classmate. And that is beautiful. That is a stunning example of kindness, right? Somewhere inside you, behind your conflict, behind your fear, is going to be a stunning example of kindness, of love, of self-service. I promise you. Because what happens when these fears or these negative beliefs that keep us in conflict are formed, they're formed when we're about between ages 0 to 7. Okay? So, like, 4-year-old us has made a decision that this fear is based in, or that this unkind thought is based in. And when you understand that the basis, the kernel of why this thought or why this emotion shows up for you in this instance is based on something that 4-year-old you decided, it becomes easier and easier for you to experience more self-compassion even before we even start the exercise and find out why our conflict is here for us. 4-year-old you or 7-year-old you Like, even just like close your eyes for a second and imagine 4-year-old you in front of you. And I'm picturing me in like this adorable little Snow White dress that my dad got for me for my 3rd birthday. So 3-year-old me popped up in my head. Like, man, 3 or 4-year-old you was just trying to do you a solid based on little 3-year-old logic. And we no longer need that logic to serve us now. So we can make peace with that foundation, with what that higher intention of service is. And then once we have made peace with it, that's where you get to feel the frictionless beauty that comes from living in peace and self-love with yourself rather than conflict. And it's so beautiful. So in a moment, I'm going to lead you through the process, and I'll ask you this question of, for what intention are you here for me today? And you can be addressing your fear. You could be addressing that thought in your head that keeps rolling around. Think to yourself right now, ask yourself, what is keeping me stuck? What feels like it's in conflict? And listen for the answer. And whatever it is that comes up with you is beautiful. And that is the sense of self-conflict that we are going to be talking to today. And so if, for example, you said fear because there's a really juicy dream you want to follow, but you're afraid to like take action on it, you might ask, for what reason are you here today, fear? And your fear might say something like, to keep you safe. Or if you are, hold on, I'll give another example in a second. So to keep you safe, that's great. That's beautiful. Thank you, fear. For what intention, fear, do you want to keep me safe? Like, for what reason do you want to keep me safe? Oh, well, so that no one will make fun of you. Beautiful. So that no one will make fun of you. For what intention do you want that for me? No one making fun of me. Well, so that I don't have to feel bad about myself. That is so kind of you. For what reason do you want me to not feel bad about myself? So that you can like yourself. Okay, so that I can like myself. For what reason do you want me to like myself? And your brain might say something along the lines of, so that you can be happy. That is so kind. For what reason do you want me to be happy? Well, so that you can live a life of beauty. That is so sweet. For what reason do you want me to live a life of beauty? So that you can feel fulfilled and free, and so that you can feel enjoyment. And when we reach that point of the Peace Talks method, where we reach something so sexy and gorgeous, like peace and happiness and fulfillment, that is what we're looking for. That is the highest intention. Those are the things that, like, when we come back down and we talk to the us that wants to, like, go for our dream and, like, really make big moves, like, she also wants to make big moves because she wants to live a happy, fulfilled life. So once you reach that point where you find a value so deeply beautiful that you can find agreement between the two parties, that is when you feel that deep sense of inner peace. And so that is what we are working towards right now as we enter into this Peace Talks method. So, for those of you watching live, or if you are watching on the replay, what I'm going to invite you to do now is just to close your eyes for a minute if it's safe for you to do so. And just think to yourself about that thing that is causing you a sense of conflict. It could be an emotion, it could be a belief. And what I would like for you to do in your mind is to send yourself to have this Peace Talks conversation to the coziest spot in your mind that you can think of. Maybe that is a warm little cottage room with a fire going. Maybe that is a lounge chair on a beach. Maybe it's out in a wide open meadow. Wherever your coziest spot is, go there mentally and just be. Be inside your own body so that you're looking through your own eyes, hearing through your own ears. Maybe you're hearing the waves crashing or fire crackling or birds singing in trees. Whatever feels beautiful and good in this most pleasant, cozy space. And what I would love for you to do next is to invite your sense of conflict into that space with you. Maybe your fear takes a seat on a cozy overstuffed armchair, or the belief that you feel in conflict with pulls up a lounge chair next to you. Whatever you envision is just right and just perfect as the two of you begin to occupy the same cozy space together. And once the two of you are in the same room together, what I would love for you to do next is to show a bit of hospitality to your guests, to your sense of conflict. Maybe you mentally bake them a tray of cookies and you offer them. Or maybe you brew a pot of tea, or you make the richest, most decadent hot chocolate. Whatever act of hospitality feels good to you, go ahead and do that and offer your sense of conflict, whatever is bringing you conflict. That little act of hospitality, a cookie on a plate. Or maybe it's a cute little British biscuit because you're having high tea somewhere. Who knows? Whatever you envision is just right. And as you are sitting there offering this act of hospitality, of inherent love for this part of you that you've spent time in conflict with, what I would love for you to do next is just ask yourself, and just ask whatever is bringing you conflict, what brings you by today? And listen for the answer. And whatever answer comes up is just perfect and good. And whatever that answer is, say thank you. For what reason do you want that for me? And listen for the next answer. And once you hear that answer, ask your sense of conflict. For what reason do you want that for me? And maybe you're hearing that part of you wants a sense of safety or to not get hurt, and that's beautiful. Whatever your answers are perfect. And whatever that last answer was, just ask yourself more deeply, for what intention do you want that for me? And listen for the answer. And then again, for what intention do you want that for me? Remembering that all answers are true, and all true answers are perfect in this Peace Talks method. And maybe you've already gotten to a sweet, high value, like joy. Or maybe you haven't quite gotten there yet, and you need to ask yourself again, for what reason do you want that for me? Beautiful. And for what reason do you want that for me? And just let the answers flow. And I'll pause my talking here and just let you ask yourself through this process, for what purpose, for what higher intention. And let your mind give you those answers. And maybe it takes a shorter time, or perhaps a little time, or maybe even a little longer time. Whatever it takes is perfect. Because you know that what is causing you conflict only really just wants a high, sweet, delicious value for you, like joy or fulfillment. And that part of you who just wants to be not in conflict, who just wants to follow her dreams or to feel at peace, also just wants that same value. And you might be asking that question for what reason again? Maybe 1 or 2 more times, or 3, however long it takes. And having this time together is beautiful and good. And perhaps by now, I'm sure you've noticed that that part of you that felt like it was at odds with you really just wanted to be whole with you this whole time. And that part of you who felt like there was conflict really just wanted to embrace the truth of all of your emotions and all of your beliefs, so that you could really truly sink into the truth of who you are now. And perhaps you'll need to take a little extra time after this, or perhaps you've already felt that sense of sweet and delicious peace. And if you have, if you felt that peace, maybe it feels good to bring your hands or limbs to your heart, to welcome the wholeness and peace and love that comes from transforming conflict into understanding, that comes from transforming self-hate into self-love and self-compassion. And that is so beautiful and so juicy. And no matter if you are done with this process quickly, or it took all the way until the end where we're talking now, however that went for you is beautiful. And maybe next time when you do it, it'll be quicker or it will be slower. However you encounter and work with all of these delicious parts of you is perfect. Because building a foundation of self-peace and self-love takes self-engagement, self-devotion. And that is beautiful, because you chose to be here right now, live or on the replay. And I'm so proud of you and so delighted for you that you get to bask in these feelings. And now that you have experienced the sweet Peace Talks method, you can feel free to repeat this process again and again, as often as you'd like, with any type of emotion or any type of belief or any type of identity that you feel in conflict with within yourself. And if you fully loved this process and the idea of engaging with yourself like this on a deeper, more peaceful, more self-loving level, then I would totally invite you to check out my homecoming program. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it now because I didn't tell you that I would. So And I always want to make sure that you are consenting to the information that you're living to, that you are listening to. Sorry, there's a plane passing over and it distracted my brain for a second. So I will let you know that my homecoming program exists. It is all about these delicious ways in which you can be in deeper, more thoughtful, loving, and peaceful relationship with yourself. And I will drop a link in the comments that you can click on if you are into that. Otherwise, I am so grateful that we had the opportunity to spend this time together, my darling sweet friend. And I hope that you come back to this video, or perhaps you join me live again next Tuesday, and we can once more engage in the peace talks method. And the more and more you do this, honestly, the quicker it starts to go for yourself. Sometimes when I'm talking things out, like, I'll just jump to what I know my fear's higher intention is. Fear is one that I've worked with so much using the peace talks method that I often don't need to ask, like, what the higher intention of my fear is very much. It usually only takes 1 or 2 questions before I get to, my fear just loves me and wants me to be happy. And something about 3-year-old me or 4-year-old me caused this fear to happen, and I can show that part of me compassion, and we can sally forth and journey on, and decisions get to happen so quickly, and action gets to be taken so naturally now, rather than hemming and hawing over things. So I fully invite you to practice this as often as you'd like. This replay is going to hang out on my Facebook page, so you can come back here whenever you want a delicious dose of the peace talks method. So for now, my darling sweet friends, until perhaps I see you back here on Tuesday, or we see each other in the replay over and over again, whichever feels good. Or if you don't want to tune in, like, obviously that's a choice. From my heart to yours, I am sending you so much love, and I hope that you have just the best, most peaceful, delicious evening. I love you so, so much.